Hello everybody. As you might know, this week I started with the steep uphill interval training, which means I will do the interval training instead of on the cycle path on the steep uphill to a local trail they built around 1 year ago. The big advantage is that the trail is split into different sections. It is split by the forest road, which leads to the start of the trail, so you can drop in at any point you want. In total, there are 4 sections. So my plan was to do 15 minutes of warm-up until there where the forest road starts, which is actually next to a restaurant. Then I would do 5 minutes of intense interval, which this time is climbing on the forest road. Actually, the first 5 minutes are the hardest as there are 2 steep ramps which have to be conquered. And the ground is quite loose with bigger rocks, so you have to put in a lot of torque to get over these. It's not your normal forest road, as on these steep climbs they aren't paved that well. So there are a few cars riding up every now and then to a gun range, which is located next to the forest road. They have to crawl quite heavily over those steep ramps, and therefore the ground is a bit looser than on the normal forest road. My plan was to do those 5 minutes. Afterwards, I wanted to descend 2 minutes on the trail itself. After 5 minutes, I would be able to reach the first entrance of the last section. Actually, it didn't turn out that well. When the timer went off, I was right in between the end and the start of the trail section. In those 2 minutes where I actually had to do the calm down, I had to do 1 minute of uphill. I tried to do that uphill as calm as possible to get some rest. And then the last minutes I descended on the trail and timer went off just a few meters before I finished the trail. So almost perfect timing. Then there were following additional 5 minutes of intense interval. I thought that I would reach the second section, but actually I was that fast that I reached the top of the trail, so the start of the first section. And also in that case, I didn't reach the start of the first section perfectly. I had to do additional, I guess it was 50 meters or so within the 2 minutes of calm down. So I went down for those remaining 1 minute and 30 seconds on the trail. I almost finished perfectly the second section, and then I could start over again by doing the third 5 minutes intense interval part. The only problem was that the last 5 minutes I started at the bottom of the trail and I reached the top of the trail. So luckily the forest road isn't ending where the trail is starting. It's going a bit further. The only thing or the only problem in that case was that another time I went ahead of the start of the trail just to check where the forest road is leading. After a few meters the forest road is getting really steep. So I already knew that starting in the middle of the trail, in the middle of the uphill, with 5 remaining minutes, I would definitely have to conquer those steep ramps. And exactly that happened. After where the trail starts, the forest road is getting a bit flatter, but after that the steep ramp begins and a lot of high grass covered the road. No other biker was probably riding this section before, at least not the last few weeks. But I kept pushing as hard as I could. I don't know the exact percentage, but it was at least 13 or so % of grade. I really had to focus on one thing. Finishing those 5 minutes of intense interval. I didn't want it to quit, as I know quitting means surrendering to the short-term pain, and in the end, after a quick break, there is no more pain. The pain and the struggle I was experiencing was just short-term. I convinced myself to push through, as I knew that if I would give up now, I would regret it in the long term. Because after a short break the pain would be gone and I wouldn't have finished those 5 minutes. So I pushed through. I was breathing like I never did before. And even after the bell went off signalizing that those 5 minutes, the last interval, are done, I was breathing like I never did before. For at least 1 minute I was breathing the maximum possible. I don't want to know my heart rate in that case, if it was my maximum or pretty close. And after that, I did as usual 15 minutes of calm down, which consisted of riding down the forest road until where the trail would start. So I stopped the timer there, put my protection gear on, put my gloves on and set the suspension to soft, and I descended the trail. Then I noticed something which never happened before. So I was pretty exhausted from the uphill. and I could feel that my legs, they couldn't keep up to the speed I was riding normally, so I had to slow down a bit in order not to risk a crash. And it was quite hard to push out of the berms. I really felt that my legs have been sore. And also strangely, I felt pain in my arms, which normally isn't the case, especially for those short rides. It looks like on the steep uphill, I grabbed the handlebar that hard in order to prevent the front wheel from doing a wheelie, as it was that steep. I'm curious what the results will be of this training, as it feels way harder than the flat interval training. So I will try to find time tomorrow. If not tomorrow, I will do the second interval training on Friday. And after that, as said, I will be on holiday for 2 weeks. So no content on Instagram, no podcast. After that, I will restart my training session with 2 weeks of interval training on the steep forest road. I'm really looking forward to this because I finally set a goal I want to destroy within October, which is the uphill time from the beginning of the year ridden with my e-bike. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. The Instagram handle can be found in the podcast description and in the description of this episode. Let me know what you think of the episode so far and how you like the podcast in general. Share it with your friends, and I'll see you next time.